Drage gledateljice i gledatelji, dobrodošli na Atma podcast. Danas imam jednog vrlo zanimljivog gosta koji mi dolazi iz Sjedinjenih Američkih Država. On je trenutno na odmoru, evo ovdje u Splitu, i mi nismo naravno oklijevali da ga pozovemo u naš podcast. Pandit Dasa, ili kako ga često nazivaju urbani monah, poznati je motivacijski govornik koji je održao mnoštvo govora, radionica i seminara za neke od najpoznatijih korporacija i sveučilišta na svijetu. Napomenimo samo neke: Google, Intel, Oracle, Harvard, American Eagle, NASA, IBM. Pandit je ekspert za primjenu duhovnih principa ili mindfulnessa u svijetu biznisa, liderstva, odnosa i osobnog razvoja. Također je autor i dvije knjige, Urban Monk ili Urbani monah i Closing the Apps. Ali ono što me posebno zaintrigiralo kod njega je činjenica da je proveo kao monah 15 godina. Pa pogledajmo o čemu se radi. Let's go! Pandit Dasa, welcome to Croatia, welcome to Split, and welcome to Atma podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Ines. I'm super excited to be in Croatia, my first time here, one of the most beautiful places I've seen, and thank you for inviting me on your wonderful podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm also excited to have you here, and I hope my English will serve me well. So how do you like Split so far?
It's gorgeous. I was walking around the palace and all of these people and the music, and some parts of it are 2,000 years old.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away by the history, the culture, the beauty, the landscape. It's one of the most exhilarating and beautiful places I've ever seen. I'm just blown away, actually. I'm having a great time here.
Amazing. So, well, I was preparing for this podcast and I was a little bit reading in your book and watching your speeches. The thing that caught my attention the most was this fact that you were a monk for 15 years. So maybe let's start off by telling us the story. How did you become a monk? Why? When?
Yeah, sure. So when I lived as a monk, the number one question people asked me was, how and why did you become a monk?
Yeah.
And now I'm not a monk anymore, so people are asking me, why are you not a monk? We
Yes.
thought once you're a monk, you always have to be a monk, you know? So basically I grew up in Southern California. I was born in India. My parents came to the US in 1980. They came over with little to no money, very simple, very humble beginnings. So one of the first things that they did was they set up a small shop in a very, very popular place called Venice Beach. So there's a beautiful beach, and then there's a boardwalk with shops, kind of like here in Split.
Yeah,
Lots
an
of
open
shops.
gym. I know,
Yeah.
the gym is very...
Yes, the open gym. So they had a small booth selling gift items. I was 7 years old, so I was just running around the beach, you know, learning to play basketball, learning about pizza, learning about the hip-hop music that was playing there. So they worked very hard, 7 days a week, right? I mean, poor immigrants working hard just to feed ourselves. And within a matter of about 8 years, you know, hard work, luck, karma, all of the things combined, they were able to establish a multi-million-dollar jewelry business.
Wow.
In Los Angeles.
Amazing.
They built a beautiful home on the hills of Los Angeles, where from there you could see all of Los Angeles. And with a pool, had a swimming pool, a jacuzzi, waterfall. Like, we began living the American dream much faster than we expected to. Like, we didn't expect it to happen that quickly. And then, you know how the world has its ups and downs. So this was our up, but a down was coming. Right? And so within about 8 years, in the early 1990s, my parents' jewelry factory actually caught on fire during some rain, and it burnt down, and we lost the whole business. Gradually, we lost the house, the cars. We went almost completely broke.
Wow.
And then at that time, my dad decided to explore new business opportunities, like what to do now, right? Lost everything. He decides to explore new business opportunities in post-communist Bulgaria.
That's an interesting choice.
It is. So some of
We're in Yugoslavia.
Yeah, it was very close, right? So some of his contacts said, well, you know, they're just coming out of communism. There's a great chance for you to maybe import and export from India and sell things because they don't have much. Yeah. So he decides to go there. We pack our bags and follow him, my mom and I, to Bulgaria in 1993.
Wow.
It had just come out of communism.
Yeah.
They didn't have anything, right? People were just eating like bread and kebab. That was it. And so, you know, I left behind a life with friends and I'm living now in Bulgaria where no one speaks English 20 some years ago, almost 30 years ago. No one speaks English.
Yes.
Right? Everything on TV is either in Bulgarian or in Russian, and I don't speak any of that. The movie theaters, the movies that were there were about 5 years old, so I'd seen everything. There was no internet at that time. So everything that I was familiar with, everything that I would do for recreation stopped. My life stopped. And I wasn't sure what to do next. It was at that time when all of my external distractions stopped, that's when I began my inward journey. And I really began to ask myself the question, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? And I think these are two questions every human being asks themselves at some point. Like, why is this happening? What did I do? Why is this happening to me? And that's when I started to explore spirituality from India, reading Indian spiritual texts, and just diving deeper, doing meditation, just to stay calm, because my life had turned upside down. It was a very traumatic, very painful time in my life. So by going inward, that was giving me some peace. And so we spent 2.5 years in Bulgaria, came back to the US, to the East Coast, to New Jersey, where then my parents could have a retail store in New York City, which is half hour from New Jersey. So I helped them with that a little. Then in 1999, I decided that I want to figure out what I want to do for the rest of my life and how I want to live my life. So I decided to go to a monastery in Mumbai, India, and just for a month. So I'll spend some time for a month meditating with monks, studying with monks, just to open my eyes.
Were your parents religious people?
They were spiritual,
Yeah.
coming from India. They practiced, you know, the traditions there from Hinduism. So they practiced that, so I was familiar with that. But still, going to India was still not a very comfortable thing for me because I grew up in the US.
Yeah.
And for those who have been to India know that it's a challenging place to be.
Yeah,
right?
so many people.
So many people.
It's so noisy.
It makes New York City look like a suburban town.
Yeah.
It makes New York City look like Split.
Because everyone's on the street, like.
Yeah. So it has 3 times the population of New York City.
Yeah.
So here I am. I fly off to this monastery in India. There's 40 monks living there, and everybody wakes up at 4 in the morning, and it's in Mumbai, so it's very busy. It's not in the mountains or anything. It's in the middle of Mumbai. And 40 monks live there. We wake up at 4 in the morning. Everybody shares bathrooms, and everybody sleeps on a floor, hardwood floor, with a thin straw mat and a tent, like a mosquito net. And we wake up at 4 in the morning. Everybody shares the communal bathrooms. And then we start meditating from 5 to about 7:30. And then the rest of the day was spent serving one another, serving the community, helping to cook, helping to clean, whatever was needed. It was a life of simplicity, humility, and service to others. And to my own surprise, I fell in love with it. I thought maybe within a week I'll go crazy and I'll want to leave. I thought that. I'm like, maybe I won't survive that. Because here I am, an only child, always had my own room. Now I'm sleeping on a floor with like 10 other monks, 15 other monks, and on a hardwood floor. So, but I fell in love with it. The mood, the friendship that they gave me, I really fell in love with it. And then I thought I'd spend a month there. I spent 6 months in different monasteries in India, then came back to the US and moved into a monastery in New York City, on the Lower East Side of New York City. So those of you who don't know where the Lower East Side is, Google it and look at the pictures. It's a kind of a wild place in New York City. One of the wildest places in New York. So right next to our monastery was a tattoo shop. Right next to the tattoo shop, there were 3 bars and nightclubs. Across the street was another underground nightclub where I don't know what happens there.
You better stay there.
Yeah. And next to the nightclub was a funeral home. So if somebody dies, they take care of them. So the thing about, and then there was pizza shop, bakeries, and other things.
Everything you need. Yeah.
Everything you need, yeah. From birth to death, all in one block.
Oh my God.
New York City takes care of everything in one block. So I thought I'd spend maybe 6 months, a year in New York. I ended up spending 15 years living as a monk in New York City, not the mountains, not in India, not in Nepal, not in Thailand, in Manhattan, one of the busiest and craziest places on the planet. And during that time, I was doing a lot of speaking and teaching on college campuses like Columbia University, New York University, speaking about mindfulness, meditation, stress management, vegetarianism, all of these things. And then about 8 years ago, I left the monastic life. I felt like just having a family and speaking in corporations, because I knew that there was a lot of stress and anxiety in organizations. And I had been doing so much speaking, and I wanted to take it to another higher level and bring my message to a broader audience. And so that facilitated my leaving the monastery so that I could go into the world and speak to the broader society on being more mindful. So for the last 8 years, I've been speaking in companies mostly in the US, but also Europe and India and South America as well. So that's sort of how I became a monk and why I'm not a monk anymore.
Yeah, but what can you say? What are the most valuable lessons you learned while living in a monastery? How did this experience, extraordinary experience, shape you as a person with your values, habits?
There are so many lessons.
I
don't even know where to start. But, one of the things I learned in the monastery is understanding that when we look back at our life, when we look back at our life, I think we have this tendency, human beings have this tendency, that we look back at our life and we look at it a lot of times, not always, with regret. Mm-hmm. Oh, why did this happen to me? And why did that happen to me? Oh, this person was so fortunate. That should have happened to me. So we look at it with regret. And I did that too for a long time. Like, why did we lose all that money? And then I had to go to Bulgaria. And then I could have been running this nice business and living comfortably in LA, driving a Mercedes and all of these things. But one thing I learned is that everything that happens to us in life happens for a reason. In the moment it happens, we don't understand why it's happening. It's hard, almost impossible to understand why it's happening. But when it does happen, few years later, you can understand why it happened.
And that it was good.
That it was good. Steve Jobs, he would say that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots when you look back at your life. So when I see now, I gained a lot of maturity when we lost everything. I understood the value of money, the value of hard work, and how to be careful with it, right? And then when I was living in the monastery, I was terrified to get up in front of and speak in front of people. Terrified.
I cannot imagine that.
Yeah, most people don't believe me.
Yeah. You spoke in front of the Google,
Yeah.
So
The only way you'll believe it is either you believe me or my mother will tell you.
Okay.
I was scared to death. And in the monastery, I was asked to teach again and again and again. During the time I was in a monastery, I must have given about 1,000 talks in front of small groups of students, whatever. And so I just became good at something I didn't realize. I didn't think I would do that for a living. And so when I look back at that, I'm like, okay, I learned that as well. So that first, I look at my life and see how everything that happened, everything difficult and painful that happened, has built me up to where I am right now. And for all of us, I really encourage that when something painful has happened in our life, acknowledge it, but now break it apart and pull out the lessons we've learned. Because each painful thing holds treasure inside of it. And if we don't open it to find the treasure, we'll just be stuck with the pain. In the pain, there's treasure. And that treasure has helped us grow. We can either utilize that treasure or only see that as pain. But sometimes you need some time, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, to realize, wow, I needed that to happen to me because it's made me more mature, wiser, kinder.
Or better opportunity coming.
Better opportunity coming, which might have missed if that didn't happen, right? So looking back at our life and not just thinking it was negative, but there was something positive behind it. And another big thing I learned is that really, and this is something I learned from one of the spiritual texts I read, the Bhagavad-gita. It's one of the main texts of India, which was read by Gandhi. Even Einstein read it. American poets and authors like Emerson and Thoreau read it. And it basically, one of the key messages was, our mind can become our best friend, or it can become our worst enemy. Because if we think about it, how negative is something, it all depends on our mind. Something could be happening. One person could say, oh, that's terrible. The other person could say, it's not that bad. Another person could say, oh, I see an opportunity here. So it's not the thing that's happening, it's my perception of it. So if I don't train my mind to see things as an opportunity or something positive, it has a tendency to go to the negative.
Yes.
It's kind of pre-programmed to go to the negative. And just like a puppy, if you don't train a puppy, it will make a mess all over your house. But if you train it, it can be your protector and friend. So the mind is like a puppy.
Yeah, I love that comparison.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like a puppy.
Yes.
So we need to take time, and that's what the Bhagavad-gita was so powerful to teach, that we can train this instrument. And what's unfortunate, no one in our school, they teach us the language, history, science, math, how to play basketball, football, tennis. No one teaches us to train this. And this is the most important thing that needs to be trained. It's almost like in society, we are trained to clean our car from the outside, but never open the hood and change the oil. Can you imagine if they said, just clean the car, don't worry about changing the oil, it would break.
Yeah.
So we are living in a society, in a culture, where everyone is telling us to clean the car outside, make it look good, make it look strong, on social media look pretty.
Yeah, train your body.
Everything.
Yeah.
And these things are good, but it shouldn't be the all in all.
Sure.
There's an engine. The oil needs changing inside.
Yes.
We need that inner work. So this was a very powerful message that I learned as a monk, that I need to focus on training the mind and learning to see the positive and being grateful, not just when good things happen, but learning to be grateful when the painful and difficult things happen. Because that's where the real treasure is. Because without the pain, there's almost no growth.
Sure.
Every pain, I think that you do a lot of working out and physical exercises.
A little
bit. And so if you don't put more weights, you're never growing your muscles.
Yes.
If you only lift 5 kg for the next 20 years, you're not growing.
Yes.
Nothing is happening really.
Nothing.
So you have to put pain to grow.
Yes.
So
always a little bit more pressure.
A little pressure has to be there.
Not too much, but a little bit.
Yeah, and life continues to send pressure into us, into our life. But if we do it voluntarily also, then we grow. So that was another thing, is when difficult things happen. So I was able to learn to look at all the things that happened in my life, all the ups and downs. It's like, wow, they really helped shape me and helped me become who I am today. So this was another thing about training my mind to see the positive, even when something painful happens, even though it's hard to see it in that moment, but at least telling myself, at some point, I will see the positive in this, even though I can't see it now. And when I see it, I'll be grateful.
So the life in the temple made you an expert in training the mind, I guess. You learn how to make your mind a friend.
You do. Being an expert in training the mind, that's a very difficult thing. And I don't think I'm an expert at it. I think I'm more aware of my mind.
Okay.
I'm more aware of when it's going in the negative direction, and that I'm able to bring it back. So I don't know if I can even say I'm an expert, because sometimes I lose the battle. When the mind wants to go negative, I like, okay, I don't want to fight. Go there. And then,
but not too much.
Not too much.
Not for a long time.
Not too long. But sometimes you just don't have strength to fight.
Yeah.
And then you let it go. And so, okay, do your thing. And then when you come back, then you're humbled. Like now you're not thinking, look, I'm so powerful, I'm the expert. No, I'm not. Life will show us that we're not experts at anything. Life will make us humble. And the moment we start thinking we're experts, life is like, I've got something coming to you that's going to humble you and show you you're not expert, actually.
Yes, that's true. So you also wrote 2 books. The first book is called Urban Monk, and the second one is Closing the Apps. Can you tell a little bit more about the books? What are they about? What is the main message of the books?
So, because people were asking me so many times why I became a monk, at one point I said, let me just write a book. And many people had said, you should write a book about this. I'm like, I don't write. I'm not a writer. And then I finally said, okay, I'm going to start writing like a journal. I'm like, maybe I'll just write it and share it with people and I won't publish it. So I wrote it. It's my whole journey. So whatever I just told you, I gave you a zip file of my journey. So Urban Monk, the full title is Urban Monk Exploring Karma, Consciousness, and the Divine. And
it's available on Amazon,
it's available
paperback,
on Amazon,
ebooks, yeah.
paperback, and Kindle.
Yeah.
Right? So it's my whole journey from growing up in LA, what it was like for me to grow up as coming from India, growing up in America where there were no other Indians or Asians, is growing up in a very different culture, then gradually gaining everything, losing everything, coming to spirituality. And then I give a lot of detail as to what I did as a monk. What was life like as a monk? Because people want to know, what's life like as a monk?
Yeah, what do you do?
What do you do? And what do you do?
How do you spend your day? Yeah.
How do you spend your day? And why are you in New York? Like, why not a monk in like
Tibet,
Asia?
Or
something like that.
Himalayas.
So I give a full explanation of what I did. So any curiosity somebody has of what somebody does as a monk, I think your curiosity will be satisfied in that book, right? And then my other book, Closing the Apps, How to Be Mindful at Work and at Home, I wrote during the pandemic because I had more time, less travel. So this is a follow-up book to the speeches I give in corporations. Because in companies, I speak on mindful leadership, how to be a mindful leader, walking your talk, leading without ego, workplace culture, and how to manage our stress and anxiety and emotions while in the workplace. And what are the mindfulness techniques we can engage in to calm ourselves down and to be more focused and productive. So a lot of people were asking me, do you have any follow-up material after your speech? We want some more.
Yes.
And I would say, no, I don't. And then finally the pandemic came and I'm thinking,
I have time.
I said, I have time. This is the time to do it. So that prompted, again, others prompted me. There was a need, so I did it. Right?
Yeah.
So I wrote this book on, and then each chapter, at the end of each chapter, there are some writing exercises. I give people exercise to think about things and write them down, because I think when we write them down, they go a little deeper, right? So it's more of a, the first one is more of my spiritual journey. This one is a more secular book about the speeches I give in organizations around the country and around the globe. So that's sort of the essence of both books.
Yes. But what would you say is the main challenge or problem? I prefer word challenge. We as a humanity, as a world, are facing today. What would you say is the main challenge?
You know, it's hard to say if there's one main challenge.
Challenges.
Yeah, challenges, but I think there's quite a few.
Yeah.
You know, I think the main challenges start because I think our external world is a reflection of our internal world, right? It's always like that. Whatever's going on up here and in here shows up outside.
Yes.
And so I think the reason our world is so polluted, right? The earth is filled with garbage. The trees are being cut down, right? The oceans are filled with plastic. And
our mind is filled with garbage.
Our mind is filled with garbage, with so much stuff
and
from
fear,
childhood. Fear, anxiety. And all of that is happening ultimately is because whatever we're holding on to inside. So I think the main problem is that at an early age, we are not being taught. We're being taught to succeed at all cost. Whatever it takes, whoever you have to step on, just succeed. That's the message that's kind of being promoted.
Yeah, competition,
be
a shark,
be number one. Yeah, exactly, you know. And the tougher you are, the greater you are, the better you are, and people should fear you. And I think that's where the problem starts. Because as children, we're sponges, right? You take a wet sponge, you touch a surface, everything on the surface is on that sponge.
Yes.
Children's minds are like that. And from age of 3, 4, they start watching TV. That's what they want to become. They see an athlete who scores, and he's like, yeah, I'm the best, I'm number one. And the kid's like, yeah, I want to be number one. I want everybody to clap at me. I want everyone to praise me. I want everyone to love me, right? So now they're just figuring out that to do that, I just have to get to that point, no matter who I hurt and how I get there. So I think that that's one of the things as children, we're not being taught. I mean, I shouldn't say we're not being taught, but it's not being promoted enough, because some parents are teaching it, I'm sure. Kindness, compassion, humility, empathy, right? And so if this is not being taught, what kind of people are we going to become when we grow up? The kind that just wants to succeed at any cost. And when that is promoted, things like envy, anger, greed, pride are completely infesting our heart and mind, right? Envy, right? You see someone have something, you want to have it and you want them to lose it. Both things happen. I want it and I want them to lose it.
Yeah, you are sad because he has it.
Yeah.
You want it. You think you deserve it. He should die.
Yeah, exactly. And now imagine a 7-year-old is scrolling and he sees dozens of children having so many toys and vacations. Like, I want this. I want to go there. So their sadness and unhappiness is starting from there.
Yes.
And now what to do? So I got to like do something crazy just to post on social media just to get people to like me. So I think that we're not teaching our next generation things like how to remove envy, how to remove greed. I mean, the world is where it's at because of greed.
Yes.
Greed is the thing that is causing so many problems on the planet. It's causing wars, it's causing unlimited problems. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer, right?
Yeah.
And so it's unfortunate that we are not teaching our children to live balanced lives, teaching them to find satisfaction and happiness in what they have. It doesn't mean they shouldn't try to succeed.
Sure.
Success is not a problem, but not at the cost of another person and not at the cost of our relationships and not at the cost of the environment.
Yes, and our health and our spiritual growth.
Our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. These things should not be ignored and neglected simply to succeed in life. And this is the message I think that's not being taught. And I feel like this is the main problem, is that we're not being taught these sort of mindset shifts from an early childhood. And I think if we are taught that from parents, from school, and everything else, I think a lot of our society would transform. But that would bring an end to capitalism, so that will never be taught.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. They like this set of values, you know?
Yeah. That's what keeps the whole system going
in
the way that it is. It can still go
Who
very
wants
nicely.
enlightened people? Enlightened people don't buy so much stuff. They don't, compete so much. They're happy, simple living.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we are definitely witnessing a crisis of leadership today, like from the highest ranks, from the world of politics, religion, media, corporations. So much corruption, lying, cheating. So what do you think is the root cause of that? Why we're having so much crisis in this area?
I mean, I think it goes back to that same point.
Greed.
Yeah, greed and just not...
And mixed values, mixed up values.
Yeah, completely messed up values.
Yeah, messed up values.
Yeah, mixed up and messed up values, right? And so what happens when somebody who's grown up to think that we should succeed at any cost, right? Now that person ends up in a position of power.
Especially those kind of people. They love it. Yeah.
And that is dangerous.
Yes.
Like now they have the power to do anything.
I heard many psychopaths go into this areas with
really?
the highest ranking, you know.
Wow.
They love it, managers and
Yeah, I mean, it's scary. And unfortunately, not all, but many of the world's leaders in organizations or politics, whatever it may be, I think, maybe not all, but I think a lot didn't, maybe some of them went into it with the right motive. Maybe they went into it that, well, I want to help people. I want to make the world a better place. So there are those definitely there. But you see, the moment someone gets to that highest point, it's really about securing your position, filling your pocket, making as many connections as possible before your term is over.
Yes.
In some countries, the term isn't over.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So in some countries, at least you're out of there. Yeah. And then you got 4 years or 8 years to fill it up before you go out. So I think that if someone hasn't been taught the proper values, they cannot lead properly. And that means when they don't lead properly, it's also so dangerous because then those leaders set an example for all the children. Children are seeing, oh, you can do whatever you want to get to that position. So I'm going to do that too. And I think so that's one of the key issues and problem with leadership is that, again, we just haven't been taught proper leadership values. And what are proper leadership values, right? Because a lot of times when somebody gets into a leadership position, they will do anything and everything to maintain that position. And they will push aside and push away and even destroy anyone who interferes with their power. Right? They will just do anything they can to interfere with that person coming up. So they'll push them down, push them aside, or who knows what else. Right? So that means there's a very intense level of greed and egoism involved in that leadership.
You have to be really, as they say, thick-skinned to kind of live in that world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of skin you need, but it's scary to think what kind of skin is needed for that kind of world. And whereas actually, leadership should be about one thing, is about the people. Whether you're in politics or whether you're in a corporation or whether you're the captain of a sports team, you really want to make sure that the people under you are thriving. There was one captain of the USA football team or soccer team, and I'm forgetting her name, but she was the captain of her team, and they won a gold medal. They won the US Cup as well, so a very successful team. She wasn't the top scorer, but she was the team captain. And what she would do is she would carry the bags of her teammates just to show that I'm your team captain, but I'm not better than you. I'm actually your servant. Right? And that kind of example inspires and motivates people to be better. Really the goal of leadership is to serve. Even Martin Luther King Jr. said, if you want to be great, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. But recognize that the greatest person is the one who is a servant. So this way, everybody can be great just by being a servant. So leadership in any capacity, politics, government, in school or in sports and athletics, if leadership is trying to uplift, encourage, inspire the people below them and really care for them and protect them, then they will thrive, they will get famous, and everyone below them will thrive. And when everyone thrives, the organization thrives normally. It just thrives. When people are happy at work, they are more productive. There is research in the Harvard Business Review that said that people who have positive social connections at work, where you have friendships at work and you cooperate, they get sick less often. That means their immune system works better because they have friends. They get less depressed. They learn faster and they remember longer. They have more mental acuity. They're sharper in figuring things out. And they perform better on the job. This is if you have positive social connections at work. But having positive social connections in your life in general you'll be in better health mentally and emotionally and physically. So that's really the purpose and function of a leader, is to get people to cooperate and to lead by example. That's what I call a mindful leader. Right? That's what I talk about when I speak about mindful leadership. Purpose of a leader is to encourage and inspire and have empathy.
That's real authority, not by force, but by example, that people respect you like naturally.
Exactly. Like my two examples of mindful leaders are Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. They personally led the marches for freedom. They didn't sit just in an office.
Yeah, and send something. You go there.
Yeah, you go there and you
I will watch from here.
Yeah. But see, they risked their lives.
Yes.
But because they did that, they have the whole planet knows them.
Yes.
And they inspire billions. Yeah. They're legends. Yes. They always will be. So if somebody really wants to be a legend, live like a legend.
Yeah.
Do what the previous legends
do something
have
legendary.
Done. Yeah. Live simply and serve people. So that is about mindful leadership. I think if leaders can learn to lead mindfully in what we've talked about, really care about who's under them and how they can help others grow, they will become famous as a result of that. And their whole organization or their nation or their city or state will flourish. So I think that's what a model of leadership I think would be so refreshing for all of us to see.
Yeah, because people lost their faith, in the leaders, and for a good reason. I mean, it's like a total mess.
Yeah.
So we are having you there in these ranks, like to give them a little bit knowledge. So I also want to speak to you about time management, because I think it's crucial to have this skill in this busy world as we juggle between, responsibilities in family life, in business, and we also want to stay healthy and spiritual active. How to balance it, how to avoid this unnecessary stress, multitasking, and anxiety? What is your advice?
Well, that's always a complicated issue, right?
Yeah.
Work-life balance and balancing work, personal relationship, our health, our spiritual life.
It's my issue.
it's everyone's issue in this. Really, it's everyone's issue. Everyone's struggling with these things.
You want to fit in so much stuff, but you can fit in so much.
Yeah. And so I don't think there's any simple solution. There's not one like, I'm going to give you 3 tips and your life is going to be... If anyone's saying that, they probably have all kinds of problems in their own life that they've tried to oversimplify.
Yes.
Right? So I think that we all have to take account and take inventory of our own life. And I think that requires a little time away from this and from everything else. Like, we need to sit down and take inventory. How's my life going? Right? And I think one of the key things to focus on is whatever success I want to achieve, materially or whatever it is, which is fine. You can be a billionaire, no problem. Ask yourself, how are my personal relationships? Are my personal relationships with my spouse good? My kids, are they happy? Am I mentally healthy? Am I sleeping enough? Or is my work driving me crazy? Is my blood pressure just high? Am I becoming obese? Like, how is my personal relationships, mental health, physical health, and emotional health? And I think this is how, and spiritual health, right? And everything else should center around that. If one of these is out of place, then we need to adjust something in our life. So for those who value all of these things, for some people, they might hear this message from me and say, like, you know what? I don't give a damn about my spiritual life. I'll worry about my emotional life when I get to 70 years old. And that's fine. They can choose to live that way, right? Everybody can choose to live however they want, just knowing that there's a consequence to all of our actions. And if we neglect our relationships now, when we get old, we won't have anyone around us.
We will have so many regrets, I bet. Yeah,
regrets. And the only people that will be around us are those who want our money.
Yes.
They'll show up to the funeral hoping we were in the will. That's it, right? So we want to ask ourselves, take inventory. How are my relationships? Do my kids love me? Or have I been just chasing ambition, giving them money, and they hate me, right? How's my relationship with my spouse? How's my relationship with my parents? How's my relationship with my community? How much am I giving back as opposed to taking? So I think that there's no one solution that I can give that applies to everyone. It's like one medicine can't apply to everyone, or one workout routine can't apply for everyone. Age, fitness, all of these things matter in how you prescribe what somebody is going to do. If someone comes to do yoga and you have them do a headstand the first day, they'll break their neck. Right? So, or somebody's been doing yoga for 5 years, yeah, maybe they want to start doing a headstand, no problem. It all depends where you're at.
Yeah, it's individually, but also it's a matter of priorities for the specific person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's no harm in succeeding, in working hard, in achieving. And I think those things are necessary. We have a drive, we have a passion. If we don't fulfill those drives and passions, we will be unhappy.
Yes.
And that unhappiness will come out onto our family and our friends.
Yes.
It'll show. People will feel it.
And that unhappiness is a sign that we need to change something. Something's
100%,
wrong.
yeah.
It's like a call from the soul. Yeah,
Yes.
I should change maybe.
Yeah, 100% that's a sign. And so I think the way to really find that work-life balance is to do some work on ourselves. Like take some time, a day every week, a couple days every month, and just really ask myself, how are my relationships? How's my emotional health?
Like an inventory of life.
Inventory of life.
Yeah.
We have to take inventory.
You need to have a long time to do that, first of all.
Yeah. Like, how do you know what you need to buy when you go to the grocery store? You open the fridge, you open the cupboards and say, okay, what's missing? So we need to open our heart and mind, take inventory. What's missing? Like, I haven't felt any love. Oh, I'm not feeling any emotional stability. I need to do something. Oh, I'm feeling like I'm just out of shape. So we need to take inventory into our own lives. And then if we can't figure out what we need to do, then maybe we need to talk to a guide, someone more mature. Like if you want to do your accounts, taxes, you get an accountant. If you have a legal problem, you go to a lawyer, right? So you go to experts. So if you feel like your spiritual life is hurting, then find a spiritual expert. Let them help you with it. If you're having a mental issue, mental problems, then find an expert to help you with that. And a lot of times when it comes to mental health, people are embarrassed to get help for mental health because it makes them look weak or like something is wrong with me. But the point is, we're not afraid or embarrassed to go to a dentist for a toothache or a doctor if we break a bone. So why are we embarrassed to go to a professional for our mental health?
Yes.
It's somebody who can help us. So we may not be able to figure out a solution for our own life. We need someone outside looking and can help us with that.
Yeah, but people sometimes have reservations thinking, oh, is he really an expert? So I say, start somewhere.
Yeah.
And it will lead you,
Yeah, start somewhere and analyze the expert.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Like too often, people find the first expert and that's it.
No, Google a little bit,
Yeah. Google, have a conversation.
What are people saying, testimonies,
Exactly.
ask, yeah.
You got to do all of that.
Yeah.
You need on Amazon, before we
Yeah,
buy something,
yeah.
we read 20, 30 reviews. How many times do we read reviews for anything we buy?
Yeah.
I read like 24 reviews or 3 dozen reviews.
Yeah, YouTube videos and everything.
Yeah. Before you buy even like a little camera or a phone.
And what to say about the teacher,
Yeah, exactly, for every little thing. So I think we do some research. First we do inventory and see if we can pinpoint what's really lacking. And we can even talk to some people that we trust and that we know. Say, hey, what do you think I'm lacking in life? People that you trust who are mature and wise, because they can see us in ways that we can't see ourselves.
Yes.
Our ego doesn't let us look at ourselves. Looking in the mirror is not enough. That'll only show you the outside. But somebody, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a friend, a mature person, you can ask them, what do you think I'm lacking? And then start your research and find the experts that can help us. But I think only people who recognize that they need to make a change will take this step. Again, I'll repeat, ambition and success is not a problem. We just want to make sure that all that ambition and success isn't distancing us from our friends and family and from our own mental, emotional, and spiritual health.
You're also talking a lot about relationships, especially in a workplace. So What would you say to someone who has a bad relationship on a workplace? I mean, it's a big chunk of the day, you know, to spend there 8 hours hating someone and to be in the gossiping, you know.
Yeah.
So what would you say to those persons who have these problems?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. We do spend half of our waking time at work.
Yes.
Right? Like if you sleep 7 hours, that gives you 17 hours left in the workday, right? I mean, during the day. And of that, 8 to 10 is work related, right? So we do spend half of our life almost spending in the workplace. Managing those relationships is not easy, no doubt. It's not easy. You know, when I was living in the monastery, people would, like, you know, there was like 15 of us in New York in a small 3-bedroom apartment. And that's a very small place in New York City. So we were all coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, different ages. And so naturally, sometimes we would have disagreements with each other. And sometimes people might think like, wait, how can monks disagree? Aren't you just meditating? I'm like, well, we do breathe and eat and sleep and use the same bathroom and sink and kitchen and everything. It's going to happen. So what we were taught is that when you notice that there's a conflict you have with someone or some misunderstanding, usually it's misunderstanding.
Yes.
My experience is 95% of the time it's a misunderstanding.
Communication breakdown.
Yeah, communication breakdown, and then you think that, oh, they had this bad intention, and it just kind of... So the best thing to do is to be the first person to approach them with some humility. Be the first.
What about ego?
Yeah,
It's
well,
not easy.
humility, yeah, exactly. It's doing the right thing is almost never easy. Doing the wrong thing is quite easy a lot of times.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, doing the right thing, exercising, it's the right thing.
Yeah, always.
So hard to do.
Struggle.
Oh my gosh, I do it for a week and then I stop for a month.
Yeah, I procrastinate that. Yeah, I don't know.
You know, so doing the right thing is always hard, almost. Doing the wrong thing is kind of easier.
Yeah.
Right. So it's hard for the ego, but if you go up to that person and say, hey, you know, I know there's some tension between us. Could you please tell me what I did to contribute to it? Now, if I said that to you, how would you feel? You're probably like, oh, like you expected me to blame you,
yes,
accuse you, but I took all your weapons away now.
Yeah, no confrontation there.
No
like
confrontation.
There's no.
Yeah, you didn't want to fight me now because you're like, oh, then the natural response is, well, I guess I did something wrong too.
Yeah.
See, immediately when you approach without ego, then you take away the other person's weapons, you dropped your weapons, and now you can have a conversation. And I did that so many times, and other monks did that too. Every time it came out so nice.
Can you repeat the sentence?
Which one?
The one with which you are coming?
Oh, yeah, so...
What did I do?
Yeah, could you please tell me, that like, first is, I noticed there's some tension between us. Could you please tell me what I did to contribute to this?
Amazing. Because immediately you say, I did something, not you did.
Not you.
Yeah, you're not attacking.
Yeah, you're not attacking because, you know, I've heard this from other monks that when you point a finger at someone, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you, right? That we did plenty wrong. We don't see our wrong. We only see the other person's wrong. So when you say that, can you tell me what I did to contribute to this? That means I added something to it, and maybe you might have added too, but I want to know what I did. And then it can, usually, that will fix the situation. Maybe not always, right? Because people are people. You don't know how people are going to react.
Maybe some tough cookie, you know.
Yeah, someone might say,
you did this and this.
You did this and this and this. Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And hopefully, if they're a little sensitive and thoughtful, they'll understand that they did something wrong too. But there's not a fix to every problem. Or maybe there is. I don't have those fixes. But this is one way that we learned in the monastery to manage conflicts. And it's a very powerful way because you lead with humility and not with ego.
Thank you so much. This is really good. Next question I would like to ask you is, we are getting more to the spiritual topics which you also like. So if we strive for the success, money, riches, is it kind of how would I say, not in line with spiritual advancement? Are these things an obstacles? Because usually we hear sentences like simple living, high thinking, you know, these things are like obstacles, like if you want to be rich, successful. Are there really obstacles, or how should we approach this?
anything in life can be an obstacle
Yeah.
if we let it be.
Yeah.
Or we can use that obstacle to help us progress even more. Right? Anything in life can be
Being
an obstacle.
poor is also an obstacle.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
If you're thinking about where you're going to, how you're going to
Yeah.
eat, then if you're trying to meditate, you're thinking about your empty stomach. So anything in life can be an obstacle. But the point is to use the things we have in life to help us in our spiritual life. So, if you have ambition, as I mentioned earlier, nothing wrong. Pursue that. So if you have a ton of money, just be more self-aware that that's not leading to more and more greed. Use that money to serve other people. Whether it's the poor, whether it's a community, your family, friends, share it. Not everything you keep for yourself as much as you need, but make sure you do some charity work.
Yeah,
give
you
away.
have responsibility when you give so much money.
Exactly.
To give back.
And if you're in a position of power or fame, use that fame to teach people good things. I really feel that people who've become famous, it becomes their duty to set a good example for others, especially the kids, because kids look up to athletes and movie stars and musicians. I think if they said some nice messages, it could make such a deep impact. So, with that kind of power and fame and success comes responsibility. So we can use that to help people become better people. So now it could be an obstacle, but we've turned it into an opportunity for us to grow and for a lot of other people to grow as well. So, but if we don't have a spiritual foundation, or if we haven't been taught how to deal with that power, then it will become an obstacle. Then the power will consume us. It will control our mind. It will control our emotions. We'll think we're better than everyone else. And then we'll just kind of go crazy. Because you see a lot of times,
go crazy.
People who have a lot of success and power, not always, I'm not generalizing. A lot of times they'll end up with so much fame and so much enjoyment of the body, either through sex or alcohol or drugs, that you go a little crazy, because those things will drive you crazy, because you're not getting enough deep level of love and happiness. So you look for it through those things, right? Drugs, sex, alcohol, all of these things, you go there. So we do need a balance in our life. So it can become an obstacle if we don't know how. It's a powerful thing. It's a success and fame. They're very powerful. And if you have anything very powerful and you don't know how to manage it, it will take control of you. And then you'll become consumed by it, and you'll become a slave to that power. And when you become a slave to that power, you've lost control, because a slave has no freedom. So we want to make sure we remain in control, that our ego doesn't become the size of the sun. Right? That anytime someone says something, we get offended and angry and upset because I'm so great. How can anyone criticize me? Right? So I think that we have to really have the right foundation and training so that we don't allow that power to control us.
How to stay grounded when you have so much power and fame? Maybe the person should be getting more into meditation, into mindfulness, healthy living, that kind of stuff helps.
I think what really helps is, that stuff definitely helps. Meditation. I think
some spiritual work,
Yeah, spiritual work is absolutely crucial. Without that, I don't know how anybody can survive it. And so, that's how I survived my time in Bulgaria. Of course, I was going through a very difficult time, but the meditation and spirituality helped me. I think it's really important, I'm going back to something I said earlier, is to have a mature and wise spiritual guide who can help us. I've had guides before I moved into the monastery, and when I was in the monastery, and those same guides are still my guides 25, 30 years later. I'm still in touch with them, and they still guide me. Even though I'm speaking in places, big organizations, I still go to them for guidance. They still help me, because we always need guidance. Like the Buddhist tradition says, one should always have the mind of a beginner. We should always have a beginner's mind. Meaning, I don't know and I'm open to learning.
Yes.
Right? If I think my cup is full, then no more knowledge can go in. Nothing can go in.
Yeah, we should have really always open mind. Open mind, always curiosity, like a child.
Curious and ready to receive more knowledge. So I think the way we remain in a way that we're not consumed by power is to have a mature spiritual guide who can help us. And some of the guides that I have, they're monks. So they don't live with much, and they have no interest in guiding me. Because sometimes a guide, if you're not careful, will guide you because they also want your money or they want your success.
Yes.
So, if you can find guides who live simply, they don't care about these things, then they will only tell you what's good for you because they don't want anything from you. Right? When somebody doesn't want anything from you,
there's
they'll be honest.
There's no hidden agenda.
No agenda.
Yeah.
Honesty.
They just want to help you.
Yeah. And you can choose to listen or you could choose not to listen. That's your choice then. Right? So I think having healthy spiritual guides in our life can keep us stable and grounded. And I think also having healthy family life is very, very important. Because now you're always concerned, am I setting the right example for my children? Right? Having that is also powerful. So having good, deep relationships, personally, and a spiritual guide can take us a long ways. Like for example, one of the texts I referred to earlier, the Bhagavad-gita, which literally means the song of God. Right? It's one of the oldest spiritual books of wisdom from India. And in it, there's one warrior, his name is Arjuna. He's such an expert. He's a perfectionist. Some would say that he's obsessive about his work because he was an archer, so he would shoot arrows, right? He wanted to be so good. He wanted to be the best, not second or third, the best. He would practice shooting arrows in the middle of the night. Now, if someone works in the middle of the night, you would think, this person's obsessive. There's something wrong with this person, right? Well, he had an ambition, he had a drive. He would practice shooting arrows in the dark so he can make sure he could hit his target until he became the best archer in the world. And he had many reasons to become proud. But he always had a guide with him, multiple guides who kept him humble, who always taught him and instructed him if he was ever going to do something immoral or unethical, they would help him understand what's the right thing. He didn't just have one guide, he had several mature guides, including his elder brother and others, who could guide him, and he was always open to listening, even though he was better than them. Usually, we think that because we have more money than someone, that I'm better than them. Okay, your bank balance may be bigger, but there may be more wisdom there. There may be more creativity there. There may be more intellect of a different type there, right? So we have to be able to see the talents and the gifts that others possess around us and allow ourselves to be guided by those talents and gifts of others. Then we can, I think, move through life in a very healthy way and grounded way. Even when the obstacles rise, we'll be able to walk through them without being too affected by them.
But what would you say? We talk so much about, achieving happiness and balance in this world, in this life. But even if we are the most healthiest, most, rich person in the world, how can we be truly happy if there is so much misery around us? Even if we have perfect life at the end, everyone must die. So is it even possible to be truly fulfilled and happy in this world?
I think so. And death doesn't have to be a negative thing. I think we see death as something grim and morose, and it's the end of it all. It all depends on your paradigm, how you see the world. If you're seeing death as the end, yes, that's depressing. If you see death as a beginning, then it's not. Like, everybody likes new beginnings. It's kind of exciting. So it all depends on perspective, right?
Yes,
Again,
sure.
we're going back to that point. If you say, oh, it's over now, they're dead, he's dead, she's dead, their life is over. No, they're beginning something new now. I don't know where that is. I'm not supposed to know that, but they're beginning something new. And so let's be happy for their new beginning, whatever that beginning may be, wherever it may be, and whatever it may look like. There is an energy, it cannot be destroyed. It only transforms. So when life comes to an end, as we know, the physical life comes to an end, but there's also a spiritual spark. Every spiritual tradition on the planet recognizes that there is a spiritual spark, there is life beyond just this physical body. right? So I do think it is possible for us to be happy. Happiness is a choice. We make choices in our life. We make a choice either to be happy, anxious, depressed, or sad. We make that choice. Because as I mentioned earlier, perspective, something could be happening and someone might think, oh, that's terrible. Someone might think, hey, that's kind of great. That's not a bad thing. So it all depends on how we look at that situation. So we could choose to look at it and be happy, or we could choose to look at it and get negative and complain and yell and blame and scream and get angry and upset. We can do all of those things too, and it accomplishes nothing except we get more miserable and depressed, where this person's now happy and like, great. Like somebody could say, oh no, it's raining. Gosh, someone could love the rain. Like, hey, it's raining. So it all depends on perspective. So I do think we can choose happiness. We do have that choice. So, like for example, I think maybe many people have seen this movie, The Matrix.
Yeah.
Right? And in the movie The Matrix, you have this character, Neo. Mm-hmm. I like to compare him to Arjuna. He's like the modern day Arjuna. Arjuna's confused about his duty. He doesn't know if he should fight on the battle because some of his relatives will die in the battle, so he's not sure. Neo from The Matrix, he feels that there is something wrong with the world that we live in. There may be another world that I should try and find. He's not sure. Then he finds a guide. He finds a couple of guides. One of them is Trinity. Then there's Morpheus, the main sort of guide. And Morpheus says to Neo, I can show you the truth, but it's up to you if you want to see the truth. And there's the red pill and the blue pill. And I believe the red pill, if you take, I will show you the truth. Mm-hmm. If you take the blue, you wake up and believe whatever you want to believe. You stay in illusion. Yeah, you stay in your illusion. So he didn't force him to accept a truth. He presented him a choice. Yes. And same thing in the Bhagavad-gita. After Arjuna is confused and doesn't know if he should fight, Krishna speaks a lot of words of wisdom. And at the end of the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says, I've told you everything. And in the Gita, Krishna is God, divinity, saying, I've told you everything. You can choose to believe what I've told you, or you could choose to reject what I've told you. So even God gives a choice. He didn't force it. Say, you can choose. You can accept what I've said, or you can reject what I've said. And if you want me to repeat anything, I'm happy to repeat it too. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, it doesn't bother me. What you choose is your choice. So you could choose to do your duty, or you could choose to run away from your duty. So I think there's always this element of free will. And that free will can also be applied to our choice of being happy, or at least being satisfied with what we have. Like, we may endeavor for something, and you've put everything you can, and you don't achieve the exact goal that you want. Now, we could choose two options. One is to be depressed because we didn't achieve the goal. Or you could look back and say, wow, but I learned this skill and this skill and this skill and this skill and this skill. Wow, and this can be applied over here. Whoa, that's amazing. So we didn't succeed the way we wanted to. But there was a lot of success. If we stay stuck in the depression and misery, then we miss out on all the success that we did achieve.
I love it. I love it. You inspire me so much. This is like, I love it. Yeah.
So I think happiness, peace, satisfaction, love, it's all a choice.
Yeah.
We can choose to live with them, or we can choose to live without them, but they will always be there for us to choose them.
Yeah, people usually say, but we are programmed this way, from our parents. We have this type of mentality. It's our karma. Okay, we can say that's all right, but you are responsible for the update of that program.
Exactly. I mean, that's a very good way to put it. Yes, what our parents put inside of us, it's hard to get rid of, no doubt.
Yeah, it's a tough work.
It's a tough one. And a lot of it will stay with us till we die.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we can't, like on a GPS, we can't reroute.
Sure.
If you're taking the wrong
road... And don't blame parents. They give us what they could.
Yeah, they did what they could with what they had, right? And Because of our karma, we got them.
Yeah, we choose them somehow.
Yeah, and they got us.
Yes.
So they were put together to work out our karma.
Yeah.
But now the blame game has to stop, and you can reroute. Like you look on the GPS, you see, oh, this one is a busy route. You can choose this route. Oh, this one has tolls. This one doesn't have tolls. So you can choose the route you want to take. Or you just let the GPS choose. So use your intelligence, use your free will, and choose the best path.
Yes.
And all paths will have some obstacles. Even the one without tolls on the highway is longer. But maybe it's faster because there's less traffic. Who knows? There is no such thing as an obstacle-free path.
Yes.
Obstacles are always going to be there. And we have to be ready to jump over them. Sometimes we will trip and fall. That's okay too. We're not going to cross every obstacle. We're going to trip and fall plenty of times. But every time we get back up, that's called resilience. We've become stronger. We've learned from that fall. We've matured. And hopefully we won't make that mistake again. And if we do, okay, we're human. We do repeat mistakes. It's okay. You learn again, and you learn more this time. You go a deeper level of learning from that second mistake you made over the same exact thing. So there's opportunity, because otherwise you could say, oh, I'm making the same mistake over and over again. Okay, well, let me keep learning also over and over again. Don't just see it as a mistake. See it as opportunities for learning, right? Because sometimes you won't learn everything in one error or one fail.
Sure.
We do need 2, 3, 4 attempts.
Yeah.
Sometimes to get it right.
Yeah, it depends how intelligent we are.
Yeah, intelligent, wisdom,
Yeah,
maturity,
yeah.
how much guidance we have from people like, hey, maybe don't do this, maybe don't do this. So, yeah, I think we take life as it comes and learn from each step. I think that's the only way to proceed.
So would you say like the purpose of human life is learning to, always striving to better ourselves, or is something more deeper? As a former monk, what would you say is the purpose of human life? Like ultimately.
Yeah. So I think there are multiple purposes, right? I think if we focus on just one, what happens is people neglect the other. So I would say the ultimate purpose is to understand who we are and what our purpose is. Like, why am I here? What am I here? What have I been put here to do? But before you know what you're supposed to do, you have to know who you are.
Sure.
Right?
It's logical.
If I don't know what this is, I may be thinking, oh, it's so the papers don't fly away on my desk. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Or maybe my door closes, so let me put it in the door to keep it open. No.
Yeah.
If you understand what it's for, you can use it in the best way.
Yes.
So I think if we understand who we are, that we're not just a physical body and not just a mind, that there's something spiritual inside, there's a soul inside of us, right? That lives beyond the body. When the body dies, the soul continues to live on, right? When we can understand that, which is not something particular to one tradition.
Yeah.
Almost every tradition across the planet believes when the body dies, the soul continues to live in some capacity or another, whether it goes back to the spiritual realm, heaven, goes into another body. That you choose what makes most sense to you. But understanding that there is more to life than just the physical body is really, and then when you understand that, then you're like, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah, what's next?
Yeah, then from there you find some kind of connection to the divine. Right? You find some connection to the divine through one of the many spiritual paths that exist on the planet. You find that, and so that I feel is understanding who you are, what your purpose is, and then connect, and the purpose is to connect with the divine. But as you're doing that, in order to have that happen, a lot of other things have to happen. Like, we have to, again, make sure our emotional health, mental health, and physical health are taken care of. If our material needs are not taken care of, which means financially, emotionally, physically, mentally, all of these relationships, if they're not properly maintained, that's the foundation of the other spiritual things. Because if I'm hungry, I got no money in the bank, and I got nobody who loves me, I'm not going to try to understand the divine and who I am.
Maybe a few person on the planet can do that austere life.
Very few, and they're so rare that we shouldn't even use that as an example. Like when it's something as an exceptional, one person won the lottery. Hey, let me stop working and just buy lottery tickets, right? We don't want to go there. So I think that the foundation for that spiritual discovery is a healthy and balanced life. That, and again, it means a lot of the other things have to be there. Everything has to rest on top of that, because a lot of times people ignore all of that simply to pursue spirituality.
Maybe it's some kind of escape.
Yeah, it is kind of an escape, and it's understandable. Like for me, I was going through a lot of difficulties, and I'm like, okay, it was a little bit of escape.
But it's a good escape.
I mean, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do
better
need to
than
escape.
going to the world of drugs or I don't know, something.
So sometimes an escape is needed.
Yes.
Sometimes you do have to walk away from life to look back and say, because if you're always in it, you can't see. You got to get away and say, my gosh, none of that was working. I need to do something different. So a little bit of that is needed. And I think we should all step away voluntarily once in a while just to look at and improve on things, right? So a little escape is needed, right? Escape is, what do you escape? A burning house, a difficult situation. So when you're in a difficult situation, you do need a little escape. And then you can properly analyze your life and see what adjustments need to be made.
Amazing. So do you want to add something more about this topic, or we can maybe leave our audience with some kind of closing message? Like, what is your main message which you want to leave us with?
So I think the main message I'd like to leave for the listeners and the viewers is that understand what your purpose is. Like, take time out for yourself. Do some introspection, do some reflection on what really makes you happy. And then gradually, in a healthy way, move towards that direction. And keep it healthily balanced, that in terms of your health and your financial life and your relationship and your spirituality. Find a nice, healthy balance between all of that. And what is spirituality for you? You decide that. You learn, you read the books, you decide what that is for you, right? And you learn and increase your knowledge on that. Find healthy ways to grow with a balance, and then help others do the same in some capacity or another. You don't have to become a spiritual teacher. You don't have to become an expert on mental health, spiritual health. Whatever you've learned, teach it to others. Help others grow in some capacity. So do it for yourself, and then do it for the people around you. That would be my main message for the people listening.
Pandit, thank you so much. I'm really excited that you came here today, and I wish you nice vacations in Croatia. You're staying in Split for a few more days.
Yes, a few more days, yes.
Yeah, I wish you all the best in your spiritual life, in your career, and your spiritual conquests, and I hope to see you soon, someday, maybe, again.
Yeah, thank you. This was such a wonderful conversation. Thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing, inspiring and helping so many others, and thank you again for inviting me on your wonderful show.
Thank you.
Thank you.